In the 15th century, the world was divided by vast oceans, with continents like America and Australia remaining undiscovered by European eyes. Asia was known to them, but only through indirect overland trade routes. Sea travel beyond Europe was considered dangerous and often impossible. Yet one small European country sparked a revolution that would permanently change the way continents connected. What drove them to risk their lives exploring lands far beyond their borders? And what did they find that made it all worth it? The age of exploration is often seen through the lens of adventure and discovery, but it was far more than that. It was an era fueled by fierce competition for power, influence, and unimaginable wealth. At the forefront of this transformation was Portugal, a country that, against all odds, led Europe into uncharted waters. Driven by a combination of ambition, faith, and an insatiable drive for wealth and resources, Portugal helped shape the modern world. So, what motivated this small nation to risk everything? It was a quest for wealth, a desire to spread their faith, and a determination to find new routes that would place Portugal at the center of global trade. Join us as we uncover the story of how Portugal's daring vision reshaped the world and laid the foundations of our interconnected planet. In the early 15th century, Europe was on the brink of transformation. The Silk Road and other overland trade routes had long connected Europe with Asia, but these routes were slow, expensive, and increasingly dangerous. As the Ottoman Empire gained control over these critical passages, European nations sought new ways to access the wealth of Asia. For Portugal, a nation with a limited land base and resources, the sea offered a path to prosperity that wasn't bound by borders. The vast Atlantic Ocean, which stretched from Portugal's western shores, was both a barrier and an invitation. Religion was also a powerful driver of Portugal's exploration efforts. The Reconquista, the centuries-long campaign to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from Islamic rule, had concluded in 1492, and the spirit of religious zeal persisted. Portugal saw itself as a bastion of Christianity, eager to spread its faith across new lands. The prospect of expanding Christian influence into Africa, India, and beyond added a sense of divine purpose to their maritime ambitions. For Portuguese explorers, each voyage was not only a quest for wealth, but also a mission to convert souls and combat the spread of Islam. But perhaps the most compelling motivation was economic. Europe had developed a seemingly insatiable demand for spices, silk, and other exotic goods from the East. Portugal's rulers understood that whoever could bypass the land routes controlled by the Ottomans and establish a direct sea route to Asia would unlock a fortune. In fact, the Portuguese crown invested heavily in maritime technology and training, with the understanding that these voyages could secure Portugal's position as a major trading power. In their pursuit of pepper, gold, and other riches, Portuguese explorers set their sights on distant lands, driven by the promise of wealth that could transform their nation into a global powerhouse. Prince Henry, known as the Navigator, wasn't an explorer himself, but he was the architect of Portugal's golden age of discovery. Born in 1394 as the third son of King John I of Portugal, Henry had little chance of ever sitting on the throne. Yet, from a young age, he showed a keen interest in geography, cartography, and the sciences that would later support his ambitions. He envisioned Portugal, a small kingdom on the edge of Europe, as a gateway to the wider world, one that could reach untold lands across the seas. Perhaps Prince Henry's most enduring legacy was his investment in maritime education and infrastructure. He established a school for navigation at Sagres, on Portugal's southwestern coast, which brought together some of the greatest minds of the time. This school became a focal point for innovation, as experts in cartography, shipbuilding, and astronomy gathered to perfect techniques that could help mariners navigate unknown waters. New tools like the astrolabe and improved maps were developed here, and it was at Sagres that the caravel, a fast, nimble ship capable of long voyages, was refined. These advancements enabled sailors to voyage further into uncharted territories and laid the foundation for future explorations. Under Prince Henry's guidance, Portuguese captains gradually explored the African coast, moving further south than any Europeans had ever dared. They established trading posts, forged new alliances, and brought back invaluable knowledge about the lands and peoples they encountered. Although Prince Henry never set sail on these voyages himself, his unwavering support and vision inspired generations of explorers, both in Portugal and beyond. By the time of his death in 1460, Prince Henry had cemented Portugal's role as a pioneer in global exploration. His legacy continued to shape Portugal's destiny, as future explorers would take up the mantle, pushing even further toward the unknown. Vasco da Gama was born around 1460 in Sines, a coastal town in Portugal. His family had a long history of serving the Portuguese crown, with his father having been an experienced navigator himself. Growing up near the sea, Vasco quickly developed a fascination for navigation and the stories of far-off lands. By the time he came of age, he had proven himself as a skilled sailor and a determined leader. In 1497, King Manuel I of Portugal chose da Gama to lead an expedition that aimed to fulfill one of the nation's most ambitious dreams, finding a direct sea route to India. Da Gama's reputation as a capable and fearless mariner made him the ideal candidate for a voyage that promised both immense risk and unprecedented reward. In July of 1497, Vasco da Gama set sail from Lisbon with 4 ships and a crew of around 170 men. His mission was clear but perilous: to establish a new trade route by sailing directly to India, avoiding the costly and dangerous overland paths controlled by Middle Eastern empires. The fleet traveled south along the African coast, rounding the Cape of Good Hope before entering the Indian Ocean. Here, the waters were foreign to Europeans, and da Gama relied heavily on local knowledge, making alliances with rulers along the East African coast. The journey was grueling. Scurvy claimed the lives of many crew members, and fierce storms battered the ships. Yet, da Gama and his crew pressed on. In Malindi, present-day Kenya, they secured the assistance of a local navigator familiar with the Indian Ocean's seasonal monsoon winds. This guidance proved invaluable, allowing them to reach the bustling trading port of Calicut, India, in May of 1498. However, establishing a trade relationship was no simple feat. Portuguese goods initially held little appeal for the wealthy Indian merchants, who had long traded with Arab and Asian traders. Da Gama's negotiations were challenging, marked by cultural differences and fierce competition from established traders. Vasco da Gama's successful return to Portugal in 1499 had far-reaching implications. He had not only established a direct trade link between Europe and Asia, but had also demonstrated that Portugal could bypass the Middle Eastern trade monopolies, gaining direct access to the riches of the East. This new sea route would soon bring vast wealth into Portugal's coffers, allowing the small nation to establish a powerful maritime empire. Da Gama's journey also laid the groundwork for a new era of European colonial expansion, as Portugal began to establish fortified trading posts and colonies along the African and Indian coastlines. His voyage marked the beginning of Portugal's golden age of exploration, showcasing how the ambition of a small nation could alter the balance of global power. Through its voyages, Portugal wasn't just finding new trade routes, it was redrawing the lines of global commerce. Before these expeditions, Europe's access to Asian goods came through overland routes controlled by the Middle East, but Portugal's navigators carved out a direct sea route to India, Southeast Asia, and China. This wasn't just a path, it was a gateway to immense wealth. Items like spices, particularly black pepper, cinnamon, and cloves, transformed diets and became symbols of status in European markets. Lisbon soon flourished, becoming one of Europe's wealthiest and most vibrant cities. Portugal also set up fortified outposts along the coasts of Africa, India, and beyond. These factories served as trading hubs and were essential for enforcing Portugal's monopoly on key spice routes. However, this wasn't just about trade. The Portuguese established a network of influence that stretched from Brazil to East Asia. They imposed their power with a formidable navy, often using force to control local merchants and extract valuable resources. This strategy not only enriched Portugal, but also made it a dominant force in the world economy. With these new connections came cultural exchange. Portugal encountered unfamiliar foods, technologies, and customs in Africa and Asia, some of which changed European life forever. The Portuguese introduced Christianity, European goods, and their customs to new lands, though often not peacefully. In many places, they used military power to dominate local trade, leaving a lasting impact on regional economies and societies. For instance, African communities were torn apart by the expanding slave trade, which Portugal pioneered. In Asia, they disrupted established trading networks, leaving a complex legacy of influence that persists to this day. The legacy of Portugal's discoveries goes beyond economic gain. They sparked an era of European exploration that changed global power dynamics, forever linking continents through trade. The cultural exchanges and connections they forged were the precursors to today's globalized world, forever altering societies, economies, and political landscapes worldwide. Portugal's exploration efforts sparked profound cultural changes that would reverberate across continents. By opening up new trade routes, they facilitated the exchange of not just goods, but also ideas, languages, and customs. Europe, for example, gained access to an array of new products, spices, textiles, and luxury goods, that changed diets, fashions, and daily life. In turn, Portuguese explorers and settlers introduced European technology, religion, and even governance to the regions they reached. In Africa, Asia, and the Americas, these exchanges often had lasting impacts, reshaping local cultures and blending traditions into new, hybrid forms that can still be observed today. The Age of Exploration wasn't just about trade, it fundamentally transformed societies. Portugal's interactions with distant lands often involved conquest and colonization, a pattern that would be replicated by other European powers. In Africa, the Portuguese began trading in enslaved people, a practice that would grow into the transatlantic slave trade and have devastating effects on African societies. In Asia, they established fortified settlements that marked the beginnings of European imperial influence. These interactions forced local societies to adapt to new economic demands, often to the detriment of traditional ways of life. The Age of Exploration set in motion a series of changes that would shape social structures, economies, and political landscapes across the globe. Though Portugal led the way, other European nations soon followed, ushering in an era of global competition for resources, territory, and influence. By the late 16th century, Spain, England, the Netherlands, and France were all vying for their piece of the world. While Portugal continued to play a role in global exploration and trade, its influence began to wane as these other powers asserted their dominance. However, the pathways Portugal blazed would serve as the foundation for an age of empire and colonization that defined the modern era. Portugal's legacy is one of both innovation and exploitation, and its impact continues to be felt in the modern geopolitical landscape. The Age of Exploration, led in large part by Portugal, laid the groundwork for the modern world. By connecting continents, Portuguese explorers facilitated a transfer of knowledge, culture, and goods that has shaped human history. The trade routes they established, the maps they created, and the ideas they exchanged marked the beginnings of what we now call globalization. Today, the influences of the Age of Exploration are still visible in the global spread of languages, religions, and cultural practices. As we look back, we can see how these early voyages, while often marked by conflict and conquest, paved the way for a world where connections between distant lands are commonplace. This legacy is a reminder of both the opportunities and challenges that come with exploration and discovery. As we reflect on Portugal's role in the Age of Exploration, it's clear that this small nation left an indelible mark on the world. By daring to push beyond the familiar and embracing the unknown, Portugal connected continents, opened new trade routes, and shaped a global economy that still bears their influence. Their voyages weren't just about wealth, they were about discovery, ambition, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. Yet Portugal's explorations were also a reminder of the complexities that come with expansion. The same routes that brought prosperity to Lisbon introduced new forms of exploitation and conflict in the lands they touched. The Age of Exploration set the stage for centuries of colonization, transforming societies around the world in ways that were often irreversible. Today, we live in a world profoundly shaped by these early explorers, from the languages we speak to the foods we eat. The spirit of discovery that drove figures like Vasco da Gama and Prince Henry the Navigator continues to inspire those who seek to understand our world more deeply. Portugal's legacy in the Age of Exploration is a testament to both the power of human curiosity and the consequences that come when that curiosity is unleashed on the world. If this exploration of history fascinated you, be sure to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. How do you see the legacy of the Age of Exploration in today's world? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.